Welcome to IPO This Week. In this episode, we're featuring Jessica Alba's The Honest Company, which is all set for its IPO. Today I want to go over some of the details of the company and the actual IPO, as well as to look at the pros and cons of investing in the Honest Company stock, and I'll also let you know my own personal thoughts on if investing in the company makes sense to me. But first, big shout out to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise community for checking back in. And if you're new here, my name is Kevin, and as you're watching this and thinking you enjoy IPO videos like this, please hit that like button. It's so important for me because it lets YouTube know it's a video that should be pushed out to more people, leading to more views, which leads me to making more videos like this. It helps me to justify my time making them, especially as the world is opening up, which has been making things a little bit more hectic for me as of late. Another reason liking the video is important is because the general interest in IPOs has definitely cooled down over the past couple of months. So that like button tells me you still want me to keep on with the IPO videos. And then just one last thing before we get into it. If you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing because number one, I'd personally love to have you on board. But really the main reason is that way you'll be among the first to see these videos as soon as they come out. Alright, on to the Honest Company IPO. Let's hit the background first. So this company was started by actress Jessica Alba, who many of you know from some of her movies, particularly The Fantastic Four. Personally, I started watching her way back on her TV show Dark Angel, which I thought was an awesome show, and even though it didn't last that long, I thought she was fantastic in it. Now I have to say this, I know there's a segment of you out there that would rather me keep this picture of Jessica up throughout the video than looking at me, and I get it. But until she puts me in one of her projects, well, I'm going to keep the camera on me and vibe. Now if she were to reach out and promote this video, I'd do a director's cut and have her picture up throughout. But anyways, back to the genesis of the company. So apparently as a kid, she dealt with a lot of health issues growing up, particularly with asthma and allergies. Well, obviously she went on to get healthy to be able to get into acting. But when she had her first baby, a lot of those past experiences came back when her baby experienced an allergic reaction from the laundry detergent she had used. Now as a mother wanting the best for her child, this led her on a crusade to find better products, trying DIY solutions, and then even eventually lobbying to Congress. However, she stated in her letter to potential investors, she felt that the status quo in shopping for these products were so difficult because some products were too expensive and others were too hard to find or non-existent. So this led her to the decision to want to develop a brand that made it easy to know that all of these brands' products were safe for its customers and the planet by developing clean, sustainable, and effective products that could be accessible to all people. And thus, the birth of the Honest Company, which officially launched in 2012. And now 9 years later, Jessica Alba and management look to take the company public. So now let's talk about today, basically what products they have and how they're doing. So the Honest Company claims to have three major categories of products: diapers and wipes, skin and personal care, and household and wellness. As far as the breakdown of revenue, diapers and wipes bring in over half of it, in fact 63% of total 2020 revenue. And then next is the skin and personal care category at 26%, with the remaining 11% of revenue coming from the household and wellness. Now as far as what the total revenue is, for 2020 it came in at just over $300 million, up almost 28% from 2019 when it came in at about $235 million. As far as the three categories we've mentioned, the biggest year-over-year revenue growth actually came from the smallest category, household and wellness, which was up 160% from 2019 levels. And then the diapers and wipes category grew at 16%, while skin and personal care grew at a 35% clip year over year. Now when it comes to future growth, the company believes that the clean and natural segments of the diapers and wipes, skin and personal care, and household and wellness markets are growing pretty significantly as a result of what they see as the increasing shift in consumer demand for better-for-you products. In 2019, the Honest Company estimated that the clean and natural U.S. diapers and wipes market was $1 billion and is growing at a 16% compound annual growth rate through 2025. Skin and personal care was a $12 billion market growing at a 10% compound annual growth rate, also through 2025. And then the household and wellness market came in at $4 billion in retail sales, growing at 4%. The company believes that their market share is less than 5% for each market, thereby giving them an opportunity for further growth. Now if you're like me, you're thinking about these markets and wondering what their margins are and how tight they could be. Well, according to their filing, their gross margin increased to just a sliver under 36% in 2020, which sounds like a pretty good number to me for the markets they're competing in. So as far as getting their products out there, well, it's the 21st century, so they use both a digital and retail approach, where 55% of their revenue comes from the digital channels such as direct-to-consumer, from their website, as well as Amazon, and then the other 45% of the revenue comes from the retail side, such as through their partnerships with companies such as Target and Costco. And in fact, the company says that their products are in over 32,000 stores throughout the US, Canada, and Europe. And then according to the prospectus, the company looks to target expansion into the Asian markets as part of the growth strategy. As far as profitability, well, it's not profitable and hasn't been since inception. In 2020, the company generated a net loss of $14.5 million. However, that was significantly down from just over $31 million in 2019. Now with IPOs, we know a lot of them come out while they're still not profitable, so you have to get a sense if they have the combination of the approach and products to get there. So let's see what they got. Well, the big thing the Honest Company has going for it is that they have a story behind their marketing. So they talk about being clean and sustainable, and to back that up, they entered into an agreement to participate in a program to offset the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from their Honest.com shipments through the end of 2020 by way of carbon offset projects. And to that initiative, they report that their domestic Honest.com shipments were carbon neutral from May 2020 to October 2020 as a result of this program, and again, they expect this to continue through the end of 2022. And then with so much focus on diversity, people of color represent nearly half of their workforce, and women represented 68% of their total workforce and 53% of their leadership. Not a surprise with their founder being a woman of color herself. And of course, another important part of the brand is in products that are natural and promote wellness. There's been so much growth in these markets in all kinds of areas, whether in the products they sell to something like organic food in general. And then you have the increasing public awareness of what people put into or onto their bodies in areas that many people feel passionate about, whether it's in climate change or just wanting corporations to share the values that they have. These are all things that the Honest Company is going for it. Now, unfortunately, they also have some really tough realities to deal with. One is that the markets they compete in are not only competitive, but crowded with some bigger, more deep-pocketed companies. Some of these names include Procter & Gamble with their Pampers brand, Johnson & Johnson, L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, and they even list Clorox as a competitor. How many of these have you heard of? Iconic names, right? And even a name I wasn't as familiar with was just as big of a competitor, and that's Kimberly-Clark Corporation, who just so happens to make a product named Huggies, and that's a name I do know, and I know they're big too. For me, the issue is what happens as these companies continue to move more and more into the Honest Company's bread and butter. Sort of like 10 years ago, outside of a farmer's market, if you wanted organic food, you pretty much had to go to Whole Foods because they owned that market. And because they owned that market, they could price their items in a way that provided some good margins. They weren't called Whole Paycheck for no reason. But over time, the big names in grocery like Walmart and Kroger's obviously saw this and started selling their own organics. And then of course everyone else did too. And that led to organic food prices dropping across the board, which was great for consumers, but maybe not so much for Whole Foods. Competition definitely put a dent in the pricing, and obviously this was a factor in getting acquired by Amazon a couple of years ago. Now on the flip side, first mover status and a growing demand by consumers for organic and non-GMO food led to a bigger market for sure, but it's still hard to argue that the competition didn't force some operational changes by Whole Foods. Now obviously, premium priced products can survive against lower cost competitors. There's no bigger example than Apple. People still buy their iPhones and iPads, even though there are Android options that might be a third of the price. Now part of that consumer demand is due to the quality of the product, and Apple has built that into their brand. But even against some competitors that have hardware that outpower an iPhone, people still stick with Apple for their next phone. And part of that is because they are all in on the brand. Apple has done a lot right, the latest being their push for user privacy, and have developed a rabid, if not cult-like following. Which brings me back to the Honest Company. Could they be the Apple or even the Whole Foods of their target markets? The premium products that people are willing to buy just to stick with the brand. Maybe, but I don't know if the Honest Company has built enough of a lead by having a big enough customer base. And then another thing, whereas people can show their perceived status by holding an iPhone, does holding wipes made by the Honest Company hold the same cachet? Particularly as the bigger competitors come up with similarly effective products that can also undercut their pricing. I don't know. And while the Honest Company has done a great job in identifying and exploiting niche markets, do you feel that they've shown enough of an ability to out-innovate the bigger competitors as they come in with their much more abundant resources? Do you feel that they have the competitive moat that we talk about all the time on the channel? And do we think that they have the brand name to insulate them from the Procter & Gamble's of the world? For me, I just can't say yes to any of these questions. So I like everything they do and they stand for, and as I said, I'm a fan of Jessica Alba. I'm sitting on the sidelines with my money while rooting them on at this point. Now I'm willing to watch them and see if they can out-execute the big names and keep growing their brand. After all, I'm always a fan of the Davids when they're fighting the Goliaths, and I would love to see it happen. I'm just not sold on this being a company to own at this point, just a little too risky for me as an investment. But that's me. And remember, that's just my own thoughts, and by no means am I a financial advisor making any recommendations of what you should or should not do. Having said that, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. I always enjoy hearing your thoughts, and I'm always open to changing my opinions if presented with a strong enough argument. Now, if you are interested in the Honest Company IPO, the stock is expected to price between $14 and $17 on Tuesday. If it prices at the high end of the range, the company would hold a valuation of $1.5 billion. And then as of this recording, we expect public trading to begin on Cinco de Mayo, Wednesday, May 5th. The Honest Company stock will trade under the ticker HNST. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, again, please push that like button and share with your friends and on any of your social media sites and forums you're on. Anything you can do to help me grow the channel will allow me to justify putting more time and resources towards it. And if you're new to the channel or just an occasional visitor, we'd love to have you join the community. Again, it's totally free. You just got to press that little red subscribe button. We'd love to have you on board. So until next time, good luck in trading. Thank you for watching and have a great day.